And we are live. Welcome, everybody, to College Football Coast to Coast with your host, Pigskin Pete, and my co-host, Mark Rogers TV, the voice of college football. How you doing, Mark?
I'm doing well, nice blue sunny skies for the past several days here, with temperatures now starting to get close to 60 or so. So Connecticut, mid to late March, I'll take it. I know we're going to get another dip of winter. Probably we'll get blasted maybe one more time. Not necessarily snow, but blasted with cold weather. Probably one more time. But it's nice to feel some warmth out there.
Would you say it was 60-something degrees there?
It's been in the high 50s the last few days. It was supposed to be more like 62, 64 today.
Right. Not bad. Yeah, it's great here. This is a great time of year. The only problem with the South is the pollen. It's once it starts to warm up, the pollen is a real mess. And if I don't have bad allergies, but I do have mild ones. But if you have bad allergies, forget about it. You can't even walk outside of the house, But let's see who's in the chat here. We got Mike 3883, Oregon Ducks, Matt Dummett. There's a guy in there named Pigskin Pete. Sea Dog Morgan. Looks like he dropped the Morgan. He's just Sea Dog now. He's made it big time. This is what people do when they make it big time, Mark. They drop one of their names and become a single name person, like Madonna or something.
Madonna, Prince, Cher, Elvis. You can keep going. At some point, I aspire to be able to drop the rest of the title and just go with the voice. People just be able to say the voice, but not quite there.
That's a good thing to aspire to. Billy Dawson's here. What's going on, guys? Glad I got a notification finally. Well, I'm glad you did too. That's a good thing to aspire to. Now, I have been having this issue, Mark. What's going on, guys? Glad I got a notification. I'm getting a little bit of feedback from you. I don't know if
I am too. All of a sudden, don't know if that's me.
I've been having this issue. That is weird. Oh, there it goes. Now it's gone.
Well, I better not do that. I'm not hearing you now.
Uh-oh.
That
is weird. Oh, there it goes. Now it's gone.
Well, I better not do that. I'm not. let me try a few things here.
All right, the show sounds great on repeat.
I lost you there. How about that? We never had that before. Okay, yeah. I think that was my issue, and I think we lost it, didn't we?
Yeah, I don't hear it anymore.
Okay, that must have been me.
Okay,
I had one of these faders up that I shouldn't have, but I got them all up all the time. Not all of them, but those up. All right, we've cleared up the technical issues. This is on me.
This is a very professional show over here. You guys need to bear with us for a second.
First rate.
No, but speaking of YouTube problems or technical problems in general, I was talking about this YouTube notification thing. I don't know if you've had this problem, Mark, on your channel, but I don't know. It seems like every once in a while. I don't know if it's like once every 6 months or once every 3 months or however YouTube figures out what time it is to clean house. But it seems like they unsubscribe me from a massive amount of people, and or people that I know I have my notifications turned on so I can see when they post a video. They're all of a sudden not, a all notification setting anymore. And I didn't go in and change anything. And so I've had people telling me this for the past couple of weeks. I'm not getting notifications for your videos. And then I go in and it says that I don't have it on all notifications, but I know I put it on all notifications. And so I'm having the same issue. And so it sounds like he's saying now he's getting notifications finally, which I guess is good news until they do it again. I mean, have you had this problem?
Yeah. I didn't know that it was me, so it could possibly be me, but not necessarily me, but YouTube doing something that I need to check.
Yeah, that's the only thing I can come up with. See, I don't understand if maybe they want to get rid of these fake accounts, these accounts that subscribe to channels but never watch it, because it's great to have 10,000 subscribers or 50,000 subscribers or whatever the number is. But if nobody watches, then it doesn't really matter how many subscribers you have. So I think maybe that's what they're trying to combat there is, I'll subscribe to you, you subscribe to me, but I'll never watch you and you'll never watch me. So it's a wasted subscription type of thing. And so they're trying to purge the wasted subscribe. That's the only thing I can figure.
Yeah, I've even seen videos out there where people are trying to give tutorials on how you build your YouTube channel, and this is what you do, and it has a lot of all that kind of spam type work behind it, like make up 7 different accounts and then go and comment on your channel from these 7 accounts,
ridiculous,
and all that kind of stuff. So yeah,
if you're doing anything like that, you're completely desperate, and you probably don't need to be on YouTube in the first place.
I've done that 25,000 times. I just want to let you know that.
But there are a lot of people that you see this all the time. Hey man, subscribe to me and I'll subscribe to you. Call them the sub for sub people. Well, that's great, but I'm not watching you, so I'm not just going to subscribe to somebody I don't want to watch. That's just me. What's up, Kevron Harris? Mike 3883 says you're a threat to ESPN. And clearly, he's talking about you, Mark. YouTube is trying to prevent a new wave of sports coverage. I don't know if I go that far, although there are a lot of sports channels out there on YouTube that are getting more clicks than ESPN is. So
well, he's talking to both of us.
Okay.
I'm sure of that.
Okay. All right. So enough of that. Thank you guys for joining us today. So every week we're trying to find what news in college football is there. Go ahead, Mark.
And Pete, not to cut you off, but just to explain, and we apologize for being late, but another technical hang-up was that Pete sent me the link that enters me into the app that we can do the show, and then it was delayed like 9 minutes. So that's another thing.
Yeah. Right.
All right. Now we can get rolling.
So we're always trying to find something in the college football news. The only real news that's come out in college football in the past week since the last time we were on here is the 247. I believe it's 2747 Sports dropped their preseason top 25. Now, ESPN will drop one. Fox will drop one. I mean, there'll be a million people that drop a preseason 25, and they'll all be pretty similar, I guess. But I was looking through this. I'm just going to say is this as a disclaimer. None of these preseason things mean anything to me. I just don't really care. Because people are always like, where do you think Clemson should be? Should they be number 3 or should they be number 1 or should they be outside of the top 5? And I go, I don't care. I just don't care really. But the only thing that stuck out to me here, if I'm trying to find this will make the Miami fans crazy. Because the 25 is Northwestern, 24 is Ole Miss, and then 23 is Miami. Now, Miami fans, from the ones that come on my channel anyway, I think they have these delusions of grandeur that they are somehow going to be that they deserve to be in the top 10 to start the season, and that they're the only real threat to Clemson when they really should be worried about North Carolina. But so let's look at some of the teams ahead of Miami. This is the reason I think it's going to get them upset. Southern Cal, Utah, and Iowa are the next 3 ranked higher than them. What do you think about this so far?
What brings to mind, and I was trying to call that up on my monitor, but I'll have to go to my phone anyway, is that the other night we had a Miami conversation on the Miami show. We tend to do that Miami conversation on the Miami show. Right. And I was just trying to rile some people up on one hand, but I was being very authentic. So I don't do things just to rile people up, but also if I have an opinion that I know, okay, this is truly my opinion, truly my perspective, but it's going to rile some people up. I'm going to jump on that, of course. And I just laid it out there in terms of what teams across the country are on Miami's tier right now. I'm not talking about this theoretical, we could be great, we were great. No, who's playing the same level football right now? And I came up with teams like TCU, Mississippi State, Ole Miss, Missouri. I even think some of those were a bit elevated. Missouri's won division championships in the SEC in the last 5 or 6, 7 years. Mm-hmm. But I was coming up with a lot of schools like that. And you can imagine putting Miami on the level of TCU and Ole Miss and Mississippi State, but it's pretty much what they've been for a long, long time. So, man, if anything, if you want to look at last year or you want to look at what's happened recently, that seems more like a slap in the face to Northwestern than it does Miami. Northwestern, and Northwestern was brought up during that conversation. I said, Northwestern's playing better football and has for quite a long time than Miami.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, this is when it comes down to the wins and losses have to matter. Winning big games has to matter. All these things. And you're right. I think Northwestern's done a better job of that over the past few years than Miami has. I mean, Miami's had flashes of being good, but they haven't been consistent.
Pete, what's funny about Northwestern is I was looking at some stats for some kind of video I was doing a few weeks ago. Northwestern has been ranked in the final top 25 5 times under Pat Fitzgerald, like 5 times in the last 7 seasons. This shouldn't be a surprise to you. They were never ranked in the preseason top 25. Never ranked in the preseason top 25 5 times in the last 7 years. They finished in the top 25. Always underrated.
They've got to be the only team that's happened to, right?
I got to think so.
Yeah, that's pretty rare. And to give these the people over here at 247 Sports some credit, and Miami fans should read this. They give a brief explanation. I can't put it up on the screen, but they give a brief explanation of why they have Miami where they have them, and it all centers around De'Aaron King, right? Can he return from his knee injury suffered in the bowl game? And so that's a big deal. If he's able to start week 1 and he's 100% or close to 100%, that makes a big difference in the potential for the season. Get him back to week 6 or at all, then you're talking about possibly dropping out of the top 25. I don't know who the next guy in line is behind him. Do you, Mark?
There is not one. There's all sorts of inexperienced guys like Jake Garcia and Tyler Van Dyke, a bunch of guys that have never thrown a pass.
Yeah. So there you go. It basically everything hinges on, and I think it's actually pretty kind to put them in the top 25 without knowing King's diagnosis or prognosis for the beginning of the season. So then we go down. We have 19 Minnesota, which I think is probably fair. 18 Cincinnati. I'm actually a little bit surprised they're not ranked a little bit higher based on their recent success. They've finished higher than that in the past, 2 or 3 years straight, haven't they?
Yeah, Cincinnati. Well, this past season, they were 7th or 8th in the country.
Yeah, right.
After going undefeated until they barely lost to Georgia. But before that, yeah, like 17th, 18th, the 2 years before that.
There's some people saying that they should have been in the playoffs last year. That's how good they were.
Now, this is funny, Pete, because I'm pulling up 247 Sports. This is the first search item in the Google search. 247 Sports updates 2021 college football top 25 rankings. This is from February 9th, so it's only a month. They must update it once a month, I guess. So I'm coming up with the one from a month ago, and it's like not even close to yours.
Oh, really? Yeah.
All right, here we go. We got another one. This must be yours.
Yeah, this is the one.
This came down
yesterday.
a couple days ago. Okay. Yeah. All right. This should be it.
Yeah. So it's Washington Huskies at 17. They are. There's a lot of buzz around that team this year, especially since the Pac-12 is such an unknown. It's a lot like the ACC. You got pretty much Oregon. I think Oregon's on a different tier than the rest of those teams right now, don't you?
I do.
Maybe not. Maybe it's not as big of a gap as Clemson to the next team in the ACC, but there's a gap there. And outside of maybe depending on what Southern Cal does, I just don't know another team in the Pac-12. Maybe Arizona State can have a surprising season or something, but it's definitely in the North. The only team that even has a chance to challenge Oregon, I believe, is Washington. And there's a lot of people saying that they can do it. They have a hot shot quarterback coming out, right?
They also beat Oregon last year.
Yeah, right. That's right. They did, didn't they?
They beat them, even though they weren't able to play in the championship game. And then Oregon lost their starting quarterback who went to Texas Tech.
16 Penn State. Will they be the Penn State of the end of last season or the beginning of last season or somewhere in the middle? I tend to believe that they're going to be more like the Penn State of the end of the season. I think it was a kind of a fluke that they lost their first 5 games. I just don't see that happening again.
I think it was too.
Yeah.
The first game of the season was a real fluke against Indiana. Not that Indiana's not good or that Penn State's so much better, but they dominated that game. They blew it at the end. Then they were facing Ohio State the next week, so they weren't going to win that game. So 0-2 right out of the gate. I just figured they'd give up on the season. which it looked like they were, and then they won the last 4.
I mean, the whole season for the Big Ten was just a train wreck. It started out, with you guys all remember, it didn't look like they were going to play at all. Then they had the extremely shortened season. They had a very, very tight restrictions on practice and all. So some of these teams just never, they just never were able to get it together from the beginning.
And Michigan played 6 games. Maryland played 5 games.
Right. So
the only thing that was more of a disaster was the Pac-12 season, but
well, yeah,
they don't seem to have many standards or expectations from anyone. So nobody, Arizona State played 4 games.
Yeah. There was a team that had played only 2, I think. Was it, who was that?
In the Power 5?
Yeah. And the Pac-12. There was a team that after 2 games, I think they just gave it, just quit. Just said, forget about it. We're not playing anymore. I can't remember who it was. Anyway, 2 or 3 games, something like that. So 16 Penn State. Iowa State 15. Texas 14. Interesting.
That's interesting because Iowa State was better than Texas last year. Texas loses Sam Ehlinger as a new coach, new coaching staff. Iowa State, most people will have them in the top 10 this season. They return just about everybody.
So what do you think this is about then? Is this more about just the big splash, the big name of Sarkisian, that they're giving him the benefit of the doubt here? Because I don't understand why they would be ranked ahead of Iowa State.
They technically have more talent if you look at recruiting rankings,
okay,
but they've had more talent forever.
Yeah.
But Iowa State brings back their quarterback, running back, best wide receiver, their tight ends, an All-American. He's back. Their defense is back. I went through the whole thing with an Iowa State guy the other day, and they're loaded.
Yeah, I've heard from several people. I don't know if you know, there's a guy named Jeff Webster that calls into my show for once in a while, and he's a photographer. He works for Iowa State, and he was saying he's got them winning the Big 12 next year, or maybe I don't know if he said winning it, but he's definitely said either winning it or giving Oklahoma a run for the money type of situation. And he knows more about the situation than I do, so I tend to believe him when he tells me that.
Which they did last year. They only lost by 6 points in the championship game.
Yep.
Now, here's the controversial one coming up right here.
Okay, so Michigan Wolverines at number 13. Go, Mark. Go.
I think people tend to overestimate, over-criticize how much they've come off the rails. Okay, they were a top 15 team in the country the year before last that lost to Ohio State and Alabama at the end of the year, but were pretty much doing what they were supposed to do, beating all the teams they were supposed to beat, and they finished in the top 15 in the country. And that's pretty much what they've done every year, if not finished in the top 10 under Jim Harbaugh. Now, last year was crazy. I'm not giving them a pass. They looked like garbage, going 2-4, barely beating Rutgers, all the things that happened to them last year. And I just think it was disappointment after another year after year, not getting past Ohio State. Then they just come off the rails last year. But it was similar to what happened at Penn State. Maybe had a little bit worse look since they weren't able to rally at the end of the season, but they only played 6 games. I think that's a little high. One thing I always like to ask, and I don't know that it's addressed here, is when somebody's putting together a top 25, like I'll put together a top 25, which I actually did a few weeks ago, but I didn't look at the schedules. I just said, these are the 25 best teams in the country, in my estimation, 1 to 25. Now, once you apply the schedule to the team, then your rankings may change because a lot of people are making a prediction is what they're doing. They're saying this team's the 10th best team in the country, but man, they got a brutal schedule, so I'm going to drop them to 18 or whatever.
Yeah.
And Michigan's got a schedule that's pretty tough to deal with.
So I agree with you there but you're not supposed to look at you're not supposed to predict forward what games they're going to win or they're going to lose to rank them, are you?
I don't.
I mean, I don't either. And well, I know. Like when it comes to the playoff committee or whatever, they claim they don't do that. Now, whether that's true or not, I don't know. But
Well, hopefully the committee doesn't do that.
yeah, right.
They're supposed to be ranking strictly on resume.
Yeah. Well, a lot of people think that though. You remember, when it comes out, oh, they're just putting Clemson at there because they're about to play Notre Dame and Notre Dame's at 4 and they want to see a top 4. You hear this stuff.
Mm-hmm.
People say. Now the bylaws, according to them, is they don't look forward. They only look at what's happened up until that point. But who knows if that's even really true or not. But I think that 14, is that what it was? 14?
13 for Michigan.
I think 13 is a bit high based on. Well, I mean, again, same issue as with a couple of these other teams. Who's the quarterback going to be? And there's been at least 2 or 3 quarterbacks in a row that we all thought, or were told anyway, maybe the Michigan fans thought, were going to be the next best thing since sliced bread, and they didn't pan out. What happened? This Milton kid that was supposed to be great last year, he's not even there anymore, is he?
No, he left.
He transferred. Who was the one before him? McCaffrey, right?
No, McCaffrey's the guy.
Now?
Yeah, Dylan. Shea Patterson.
Yeah, Shea Patterson. There you go. Isn't there Dylan McCaffrey? Is that who I'm thinking of?
Dylan McCaffrey left.
He left.
JJ McCarthy. McCaffrey.
I hope they're
difficult to keep straight.
I hope they got a group plan on their plane tickets out of there, to save themselves a little bit of money. So this is my point. It's a revolving door of quarterbacks around there, and you just can't. Look, you're in the same division as Penn State, Ohio State, teams that are somewhat settled in their roster. Compared to Michigan, they are. You've got to settle in, especially at the quarterback position, or you're not going to ever beat either one of them.
Well, I would prepare this 5-star JJ McCarthy. So he was in spring practice. He's an early enrollee. So I would see, as they should be looking at right now, is he grasping the playbook? How does he look? Do we think we could possibly get him ready to be the guy as a true freshman? But they at least got a security blanket in Alan Bowman from Texas Tech, who's a decent quarterback. I don't think he's going to change the program. I don't think he's going to elevate them to anything great. He's not that type of player. But they can either go 5-star right out of the gate, true freshman, or the guy that they know is reliable from Texas Tech.
Yeah. I'll tell you what, for a team that's been so average for so long, well, at least since Harbaugh's been there, they sure are interesting. I mean,
what do you consider average?
Okay, maybe. All right. So I guess I'm going off of expectation for Michigan.
Yeah.
So, okay, if you're comparing them to the rest of the Power 5 schools, okay, they've been above average just by wins alone. Average by Michigan standards. What I mean.
Yeah.
But I think they're an interesting team. They're obviously polarizing. You have everybody in the country is always looking to see what Michigan does. Even if they just want to call them terrible and point it and laugh at Jim Harbaugh, they're still watching. They care. So they're a polarizing team. Number 12, Notre Dame.
Another polarizing team.
Yes. I would say Michigan, Notre Dame are in the Mount Rushmore of polarization right now, and for a long time, really. So they lose their gunslinger. What was his name? I should know this. He ran
Ian Book.
Yeah, Ian Book. Yep. Lose Ian Book. I don't know who his replacement is. I'm sure if there's an Irish fan in here, they might be able to tell me how great
they got the Wisconsin.
Oh yes,
quarterback right. Jack Cohn.
Jack Cohn, who was, I don't know. I'm trying to think of who to compare him to.
I don't think they're necessarily
quarterback over the past 20 years.
Exactly.
So, I guess Notre Dame's going the route of depending on good defense and good offensive line, run the ball good, and I don't know. I mean, I think Ian Book was a little bit of a upgrade over what they've had in the years past.
Mm-hmm.
He was actually able to move the ball right. I mean, his real threat was with his legs. I mean, he killed Clemson with his legs, and he did a lot of teams.
Yeah, people criticized Ian Book because he wasn't a number one draft choice type of talent, Trevor
Right.
Lawrence, Justin Fields, but definitely better than Brandon Wimbush,
Oh,
Everett
yeah.
Golston, Malik Zaire. Those have been the quarterbacks pretty much since like 2012.
Yeah. So what I'm getting at here is again, he's not going to be a JT Daniels gunslinger like for Georgia. He's not going to be a DJ Uiagalelei type of player, but maybe they don't need him to be that. You know, I don't know.
I talked to some Notre Dame people last week. They pretty much think that if you pretty much know what you get with Jack Cohn. And he led Wisconsin to the Rose Bowl. He's a capable quarterback, but yeah, he's not going to carry the offense. That again, it's another situation kind of like Michigan where he's the security blanket, he's the safety net, but they're hoping that the next guy, I can't remember his name, is the guy, but no experience, freshman, redshirt freshman type.
Is he a highly recruited guy? I'm assuming he is. If
Oh
he's
yeah,
Notre Dame, but that's a good point, Mike. 3883 makes Jack Cohn versus Wisconsin will be fun. Do they play Wisconsin this year? I guess they do.
They are playing this year.
That will be fun. Anytime a player goes back to his former school. Tyler, Notre Dame. Here we got a Notre Dame guy in here. Tyler Buckner is the future at Notre Dame. 5-star, he says. Is that who you're talking about, Mark?
Tyler I am.
Buckner?
Yes.
Okay.
I remember his name.
All right. So maybe Tyler Buckner sits on the bench for a year, and then he has his breakout year in 2022. Who knows?
So for Notre Dame, that's a bit of a downgrade from what they've been the last few years. Number 12, if that comes to fruition. And speaking of which, your next team up,
Wisconsin. So is that their kickoff game of the year, or do you know?
No, that's game 5, 6. It's pretty deep into the season.
Oh, okay. All right. Yeah, I was going to say that's usually when conference play happens, but Notre Dame doesn't matter. They're not in a conference, so they're playing conference teams all year long. Wisconsin, another team. I'd say, look, you just pull a calendar out with the years on them, throw a dart at it, and whatever year it lands on, you could say they're probably going to start the season around 10 or 11, right? Yeah. They're a 10 or 11 ranked team pretty much every year.
The first number that came to mind when you started down that path was 13. I was going to say, I was just going to shoot out 13, but pretty much the same thing. Yeah. 11, 13. That's Wisconsin. Yep. They're going to go 9-3, 10-2.
And sometimes they finish the season ranked a little bit higher than where they were. Sometimes they finish it right about where they started it. And then maybe they might drop a spot if they have a bad season, but they never waver too much from that position, right? Wisconsin's not a team that's going to just go out there and have a season like Florida State did, right? Where they only win 2 games. It's not happening.
No, they're not elite, but man, do they have their system down. They know who they are. They know what they do well. And 10-3, 11-2, pretty much every year, even last year. So last year they had issues at quarterback, Graham Mertz. Well, Cohn got hurt, so he missed the season. They bring in the 5-star Graham Mertz, which this is their highest rated player ever. So there are big things expected of him, and maybe why they're ranked number 11 preseason. But anyway, at least by this particular writer. But they lost some tough games, but they only played again a 6-game season. They only played a 6-game season. They lost to some really good teams like Indiana, Northwestern by, very close scores. And then they go out against Wake Forest in the bowl game, and they probably got things together and they whipped them pretty badly.
The question with Wisconsin is they always have an NFL caliber offensive line. And then every once in a while, every few cycles, recruiting cycles, they land a Jonathan Taylor type of talent. So where's the Jonathan Taylor? Because this team is they're never going to be the air it out team, or maybe they will eventually, but I don't think under this coach they will be. Like you said, they know who they are, they do what they do well, and they stick to that formula when it comes to recruiting and coaching and the whole thing. So, but who's going to be the next big time name tailback or running back to come through there. That because whenever they had Jonathan Taylor, they could beat anybody on any given day. Period.
Yeah.
I mean, it doesn't matter who they lined up against. They had a chance of beating them. And since Taylor left, I know last year was a different story, but
Jonathan Taylor, Monte Ball, James White, Melvin Gordon.
Yeah.
Going back to Ron Dane 20, 25 years ago. They've had some great backs.
Yeah. Right.
But they don't have that guy now. And this guy, Jalen Berger, is the highest recruited and touted guy at running back, but they don't have a proven guy at running back.
Yeah. So that'll be interesting to see who the up and coming guy is at tailback there. And of course, right here under the ranking, it says Wisconsin should be back to being Wisconsin. There's no way it will have the health issues of 2020 again. Well, let's hope nobody does. I think a lot of those health issues had to do with COVID. So it wasn't just Wisconsin dealing with that problem. But all right, number 10, the LSU Tigers. I got to say, I am a little bit shocked about this ranking here.
They have the talent to do this, but man, this would be.
So the word on the street is that this quarter, I don't know this. I can't remember this guy's name. This quarterback that's coming in there is supposed to be like generational guy.
Well, they've got all sorts of guys. As far as I know, they've got about 4 guys. They've got Miles Brennan was the guy that started last year.
Yeah, that's not who I'm talking about. Somebody else
who replaced Joe Burrow. They got T.J. Finley. They got Max Johnson. Let's see. I don't know.
I think that might be.
There's another guy.
I clicked on a YouTube video like a week or two ago. It's something I'd never seen before, but these guys were talking about the LSU quarterback situation, and both of these guys, and I wish I knew who they were.
All 3 of those guys that I just named played last year.
They were swearing up and down that this. I think it was the last one that you mentioned.
Max Johnson. Yeah,
I think it was him. They were drooling over this guy. And
I haven't seen enough.
So I don't know, but I was just going off of what they were saying. They were LSU fans, so I figured they know more about it than I do, or maybe they're just being homers for all I know. That could have been. It sounded like they knew what they were talking about to me, Mark. So I believed them. That's all I'm saying.
All right. Well, Max Johnson played last year.
He did.
You believe everything you read on the internet?
No, I don't.
Okay. Yeah, I don't know what to tell you about that one. I know that Miles Brennan got hurt.
Yeah.
He was actually off to a ridiculous. I made all sorts of claims that, of course, Miles Brennan, Burrow threw 60 touchdowns. I was saying this guy throws 40 touchdowns. That's crazy to think about having to hit the standard of 40 touchdowns, but that's even a 20. That's like a 50% drop from 60. But he was on pace to throw 60 touchdowns. Despite all the struggles they had, Miles Brennan was on pace to throw 60 touchdowns in 15 games. But anyway, he gets hurt, and then these other 2 step in, and they traded the position back and forth last year.
All right.
And they did beat Florida and Ole Miss the last 2 games of the season.
Now, the other question here is we don't know, and this doesn't matter as far as their preseason ranking. It only matters for what happens in the postseason. But I'm expecting some sort of penalties to come down on LSU's program in some way, shape, or form. And I don't know, who knows what that's going to look like and when it's going to happen.
You would think it's got to be pretty severe.
You would think so. Not just, postseason bans or whatever, but recruiting violations or whatever, or restrictions.
Yeah, scholarships.
Scholarships.
Gone.
I know that's not what the LSU fans want to hear, but they've got to be sitting around waiting for the axe to fall, Anyway, all right, moving on. Oregon 9. Now, I like this. I would have Oregon higher, but I like it in the top 10. What do you think, Mark?
I like them right there. I would love to pull up my 25 to see. I had them about that spot. Yeah, I had Oregon 9 or 10. So again, not looking at the schedule, because the schedule, I think, could elevate that ranking. Because if they're the team in the Pac-12, well, they're playing Ohio State on the road. They probably lose that game. and maybe they trip up once in the conference, and they're a 10-2 team that wins a conference championship game. They're 11-2. They're going to finish higher than 9th, but I don't think they're any better than the 9th best team in the country. In fact, I don't know that I wouldn't pick the 3 teams behind them to beat them if they played tomorrow: Notre Dame, LSU, and Wisconsin.
Man, I don't know about all that.
Not a huge fan of Oregon. I think they're good.
Well, I mean, they haven't really done anything. It's, the sort of a "what have you done for me lately" thing, right? I mean, they had the playoff appearance, the national championship appearance. What was that? 2014 or 15?
14.
14.
Well, they won the Rose Bowl in the Pac-12.
Yeah,
the last full season,
but haven't really lived up to the expectation. Again, Oregon's been a very good team, way above average team. But the expectation for Oregon has been to be competing for national titles in the past 4 or 5 years, and they really haven't. So I still am. I haven't jumped off of the Oregon hype train yet. I still believe, just based on the recruiting and what's going on around them in the rest of the Pac-12, that they have the ability to be a top 3 or 4 team at the end of any given season.
I think they're pretty much doing what they're expected to do, at least what I expect them to do.
Right.
I've got a little different view on it because Cristobal takes over. They're really not that good. He's elevated them a little bit every year. They win a Rose Bowl. They finish in the top 6 or 7 in the country 2 years ago. I don't know what to make of last year. They win the Pac-12 championship. That was kind of gifted to them because of COVID. They got to play in the game. They won the game. They beat USC. They went to the Fiesta Bowl. They got dusted by Iowa State. Again, they played like 6 games.
They didn't. They weren't very good last year. I mean,
no.
they weren't very good last year. But I don't know. I don't know what it is about Oregon that there's something about them. I feel like they're on the springboard to, about to shoot themselves into the stratosphere along with the Georgias and Clemson and Alabamas and Ohio States. I just feel like they're right there and just haven't broken through or something.
Oh, that wouldn't surprise me.
Yeah.
But again, if we were playing football tomorrow and they went and had to play Notre Dame, Wisconsin, or LSU on a neutral site, I think I'm taking all 3 of those teams against Oregon.
Wow. Okay. Now this one, how about this one? So 8, Florida. I don't
way too high.
I think everybody pretty much agrees that Florida is going to take a step back from last season, right? I mean,
yes.
So what are we looking at? Who's their quarterback? Henry Jones? Is that who it is?
Yes.
All right.
Number 8 in the country. That means they're going to go 10-2. Let's say 9-3 win a bowl game 10-3, or 10-2 win a bowl game 11-2. That's 11-2, 10-3 at worst. 10-3.
Where are the
going number 8?
Right. Yeah. They're
not going to do that. I don't see it.
Kyle Pitts is gone as well. Kyle Trask is gone. Didn't they lose like either the top 2 or top 3 receivers as well to the NFL?
Kadarius Toney.
Yeah.
Maybe a first round pick.
Yeah. I'm not going to say it. I'm not going to sit here and say that Florida's going to be a terrible football team or anything, but it doesn't matter who you are. It's hard to, the only teams like Alabama who've been recruiting number 1 or number 2 in the country for the past 10 years straight can replace that in one season.
Well, Ohio State's a good example.
Yeah.
Ohio State's losing a lot, but people are still confident that the roster is just loaded, but they've got a lot of things to figure out.
I mean, same goes with Clemson, at least on the offensive side of the football. They're losing obviously they're losing their quarterback, losing a couple of their top wide receivers, losing their one of the best running backs in the history of the ACC, if not the best. They have some work to do too, but they, again, like you said, they're loaded. Just have a bunch of young guys that have to step up. But Florida at number 8, I don't know what the odds are there in Vegas, But take all of your mortgage and say that I don't think the Florida's going to finish in the top 10 at the end of the season.
No.
So moving on, 7 North Carolina. I think that's proper. I don't know about 7, exactly 7, but I'd say anywhere between 5 and 10.
Yeah, I'm okay with it. I think it's slightly high, but that's fine. I'm good with that.
Yeah,
they have a lot to replace from the skill position standpoint.
Yeah. Let's see. It says they get back just about everybody on the offensive line. They have a good defense, and of course, Sam Howell is returning as one of the nation's best quarterbacks. So all those things are true. But
this thing says they've got a good defense. North Carolina had a good defense. North Carolina had a good defense. They gave up 53 points to Wake Forest.
Yeah, great defense.
And 40 points to everybody else. They didn't have a good defense.
Yeah.
Now they bring back 10 starters on their defense, but they don't have a good defense.
You're right.
It could change. They've recruited well.
Here's what I will say about a team like North Carolina. Very talented in a weak league. In the weaker of the two divisions in the league. All the pressure now you know you're not North Carolina, the underdog, or ranked number 24 in the preseason. Nobody cares about you. The whole country's looking at you now and expecting you to win or compete. So you certainly to win your division and somehow compete with Clemson in the ACC championship game. So all the pressure is on North Carolina. Now, luckily, they have a head coach who's used to this type of situation. He's a veteran. He's won national titles. I mean, so he knows how to handle it. But the players is a different story. It's one thing. This is why you don't see sustained excellence a lot in college football. It's rare to see what's going on at Alabama because the pressure is too much for some of these college kids to handle. And you see a lot of yo-yoing, having great seasons, and then you follow up with a terrible season. Then you follow it up with a great season, and up and down, up and down. It's very hard to be consistent. And so can North Carolina live up to the expectation that the country has for them? I say, well, I don't say anything. What do you say? I say maybe. I don't know.
I think North Carolina's got the best quarterback coming back.
Yeah.
They got the best quarterback, and I had a North Carolina guy on just a couple of weeks ago. He thinks that the running backs and wide receivers that have to be replaced will be replaced by guys that were highly recruited. And again, 10 players back on defense. So I think the defense was bad last year. There's our guy, Luke Walker. The defense was bad last year, but they bring back 10 starters, and guys are highly recruited. They're recruiting well on defense, so it's just a matter of turning that talent into a cohesive unit that plays well.
Yeah. So we're on the same page here. I think the whole country, a lot like I said, the eyes are always on Michigan because they're Michigan. Well, the eyes aren't always on North Carolina because they're not typically revered as a football school. But I guarantee you, all of the eyes are on North Carolina this season. So this is their time to either put up or shut up, and I'll be right in the front row of that show. All right, number 6. I love this. I don't love this guy, but I love this pick. Texas A&M. Now, we were just talking about North Carolina a minute ago. They played North Carolina in a bowl game. That ended up being a really good game. Texas A&M ended up winning it. But North Carolina, I think they were down pretty far, and then they scored a bunch of unanswered points, and they made it interesting at the end there.
Yeah, they actually had a lead in the fourth quarter.
Yeah. Texas A&M, to me, is on the verge of, well, I don't know what they're on the verge of, because here's the problem. Like, are they on the verge of dethroning Alabama as the best team in the SEC? No, I'm not saying that. But they don't need to be. They technically don't have to do that, because let's say if you look at Texas A&M's schedule on any given year, it's one of the top 5 or 10 toughest schedules every year, right? Because of who they are and where they are.
Yeah.
So, I mean, Auburn, Alabama, LSU, all in the same division. Now, outside of their division, they play South Carolina every year. I guess that's not a huge one. Who's their other rivalry game that they play?
Well, that's basically it. I don't know if their schedule is that tough, But I get it. They play in the best division. So, yeah, it's Alabama, Auburn, LSU. And then they got to play whoever they got to play in the East, which is a rotating deal besides South Carolina, which is not a deal, which is not a difficult task.
Right.
And then they schedule some, well, besides playing Clemson home and home, they play Colorado this year. That's their big non-conference game. And then they play 3 softies. So I don't think their schedule is that tough, but it's formidable. Yeah, they play in the best division.
I guess what I'm getting at here is they don't have to necessarily, like, if they go undefeated in their SEC schedule other than Alabama, that's their only loss. I think there's a good case that they on any given year that they could get in the top 4 with that resume. Now, depending on how they lost to Alabama too, like if they lose by 60, maybe not, but if they keep it close, so they don't have to technically dethrone Alabama to get into the playoff system. And once you get into the playoffs, it's anybody's ball game. It's one loss and you're out. So I don't know. I feel like that they are the next best team in major, and certainly in the SEC.
Well, that's not the way to do it, though. That's not the proven path to get to the playoff. Is not win the conference. Well, that doesn't happen very often. Ohio State did it once. Alabama did it once. It's only happened twice in 7 years. Yeah. But it can't. Yeah, that's the place to do it. They can do it. They almost did it last year. They almost got selected. They were in the 5th spot. So it could happen. I still think Georgia's better. But I'm okay with Texas A&M. Actually, I'm scrolling through my video of my top 25. I'm going to run these down for you as soon as I unfortunately can't find a list. But I'm making my way through here.
Okay. Speaking of the Georgia Bulldogs, number 5, Georgia Bulldogs. I don't really understand if there's anybody anywhere that doesn't have Georgia in their top 4 or 5 preseason.
Yeah.
I mean, if you don't have them in your top 5, then tell me the 5 teams that should be ahead of them. That's all. Because people love to tell me that. How in hell Georgia hasn't won a national championship since 1980, as if that matters now. Right?
Yeah, that has nothing to do with it.
The 17 or whatever the hell happened in the SEC championship game play. Well, none of that has to do anything with now. Absolutely nothing. And so what I tell them when they tell me that is, okay, then tell me 5 teams better than Georgia. And they can't do it. Either they can't do it, or they throw some ridiculous school in there. This, a fringe top 15 team, Yeah. To fill that 5th spot.
Michigan State went to the playoff in 15. Yeah. Does that mean they're good now? No, they're not good.
Right. And of course, the one of the biggest games of the year, certainly the biggest game of that week, week 1, the opening week, Clemson and Georgia. Can't wait for that.
I think that it is no doubt the best non-conference matchup of the year. And I would say that until we get to a conference championship game, that might be Alabama, Georgia, let's say, for example, that it's the game with the best talent on the field that's scheduled in the regular season.
Yeah. And I wish it wasn't at a neutral site, but I'll take it. Because now you have to understand, a year ago, this game wasn't scheduled. So Clemson was scheduled to play Wyoming, I think. And I don't even know who Georgia was scheduled to play, but they somehow figured out a way to make this happen. If that means it has to happen in Charlotte, I'm all for it. I'd rather see it there than nowhere. But I really did rather see this game on a campus. But whatever, I'll take it. I'm not going to complain. Rather see that than Wyoming. Moving on, number 4, the Ohio State Buckeyes. Again, sort of like Georgia. How are you not going to have them in your top 5? I know they're replacing Justin Fields, but who's the guy? Who's the next guy?
We don't know. They've got a 3-man battle going on between 5 stars and high 4 stars.
Oh, what a problem to have.
Kyle McCord and CJ Stroud's taken snaps. He ran for a long touchdown, but they have, this is a crazy stat for a team that's going to be ranked in the top 4 or 5 in the country. They don't have a quarterback who's thrown a pass in a college game coming back.
Yeah.
For the first time in over 50 years in the program.
Wow.
And you,
I somehow, I apologize. I missed this earlier. I missed several super chats here. Let me get to these real quick. Because I don't know how I was busy looking at the other website. I wasn't looking at the chat. Go Tigers 504. Thank you, sir, for the super chat. Me and Mark really appreciate all the support we can get. If it weren't for you guys supporting the show, we would not be able to do the show. He says it's blasphemy speaking LSU in the same sentence with Miami. I think Slim Shady Canes would agree with you. Right, Slim? Thank you, too.
which way is it the blasphemy? I'm trying to understand that.
Thanks, Slim, for the support, buddy. He says if a 3-win LSU is top 10, Miami should be in the top 5 going 8-2 last season. I don't. So this is the other debate. I don't necessarily disagree with what he's saying there, except for the fact that it depends on what you value for ranking this season. I don't think looking at I mean, you can't get last season out of your head. It's going to influence your thought on this season, at least some.
Sure.
But you're really supposed to be looking at this year's team and not last year's team. You know,
I think it's a basic deduction of, okay, what happened last year? How valid was it? Well, in my eyes, every season it's extremely valid. That's what happened. But last season has to be taken in a little bit of a different context, especially when you're talking Pac-12 teams playing 4 and 5 games.
Yeah.
But basically, you look at last year. Okay, who did that particular team lose? What are the personnel losses? What are the personnel gains? How great was the recruiting class? And how much of an impact is that going to have immediately? But more so, what are the personnel losses? And then there's your team. There's your estimation of how good they are.
Yeah. But anyway, thank you both. Go Tigers 504 and Slim Shady Canes. I really don't believe there's anybody on, even Slim Shady doesn't think that Miami should be ranked ahead of LSU, at least in the preseason anyway. Now, after a few games, we might get a better idea of what to think about those two teams. Anyway, back to Ohio State. Look, we're running out of time here. Is there anything needs to be said? This is one of the most talented teams every year. Ryan Day is getting what's he going into his 3rd season now?
Yes.
So he's getting more experience as a head coach. They're recruiting at a high clip. I guess the only real question mark is which 5-star they're going to trot out behind center on week 1. Other than that, they'll be just fine. And yes, of course, they should be in anybody's top 4. Number 3, Oklahoma, sort of. I'm not surprised about this. The way they ended the last year, they were definitely one of the 4 best teams when the season ended, even though they didn't make the playoffs because they started out the season, what was it, 0-2? And they got punished for that. But by season's end, there was nobody in America that wanted to line up against Oklahoma. They were on fire. And I know they got Rattler coming back, a bunch of offensive weapons coming back. I believe. Let me look at this here. I believe they have a good bit of their defense coming back. And yeah, the joke has always been Oklahoma's defense is terrible. Big 12 defense. They weren't bad last year.
No, top 15.
Top 15. I've been saying this for several years, especially since they got in the playoffs a couple of times and lost in the first round. I've always said, they were somewhere in the 60s, 70s, 80s nationally ranked on those playoff teams defensively. I said, if they even get in the top 25, they'll be virtually unbeatable because of how good their offense is. And of course, you said last year, top 15.
Yeah. Well, that's because their defensive coordinator knows what he's doing. He had Washington State's defense that was like number 100, 105, 110 in the country, and he lifted them to a top 25 status for a couple of years before he left. Went to Ohio State. They didn't really cut him loose. He didn't have control of the defense. Then he goes to Oklahoma, takes defenses that are ranking 80, 90, 100 in the country. They were top 15, like in every reasonable measurement last year.
Yeah, watch out for Oklahoma, folks.
Yep.
Watch out for Oklahoma. I could very easily see them in the playoffs and maybe even winning a playoff game. All right, moving on. Since we're running out of time here, I'm going to just do these last 2 together. And so they have Clemson 1 and Alabama 2. I don't remember, what are we doing here? And you can even throw Ohio State and Oklahoma in this same mix of people, and maybe even Georgia. All these top 4 and 5 teams are pretty much indistinguishable at this point, at least in a preseason ranking. So whatever. You want to put Clemson number 1, I'm fine with it. You want to put them at 5 or 4, I'm fine with that too. Any thoughts on that? I mean, I don't really think anybody else is there anybody that doesn't have Clemson and Alabama in their top 3, no matter which way you're doing it?
My thoughts are I'm going to rip through my top 25, and this can set up our discussion for next week. We don't have to discuss this. We don't have time. Florida 25, TCU 24, Kentucky 23, Louisiana 22, Penn State 21, LSU 20, Ole Miss 19, Indiana 18, Cincinnati 17, Arizona State 16, Texas 15, Miami 14, Wisconsin 13, Oregon 12, Iowa 11, USC 10, Notre Dame 9, North Carolina 8, Iowa State 7, Texas A&M 6, Ohio State 5, Oklahoma 4, Clemson 3, Alabama 2, Georgia 1.
Hey, look at that. Georgia won, everybody. All the Georgia haters out there are going to have a real field day with that, Mark.
Yeah, they are. They already have. All
right. And, we'll see what the rankings are in the AP anyway as the season starts. But we're going to have, Clemson and Georgia play each other right off the bat. So that'll take care of itself. That'll end that argument about which team is better, right? Or right after week 1. So anyway, thank you to everybody that showed up today. You can catch us every single Monday right here for college football coast to coast. And we could not do the show without all of your support. All the people that come and hit the like button, share it on your social media pages, send us a super chat, whichever way you support, it all helps. Mark, what you got going on this week?
Got a call-in show coming up tonight at 6 p.m. Eastern time on my channel. Just look up Mark Rogers TV, the voice of college football on YouTube. If you're not familiar, 6 o'clock call-in show. You produce the show, basically. I throw out some topics, but whatever you want to talk about concerning college football.
Yes. Everybody go check out Mark Rogers' live call-in show. I will be on tonight on Uncle Lou's channel for the weekly Lunch Money show, the show about nothing. I'm sure it'll be an interesting show about nothing tonight. So make sure you show up for that. And of course, on Wednesday, I have my own live call-in show at 10 p.m. So I'll see you all there for that. Any last words, Mark?
Sounds good.
All right. See you guys later. See you next week. Thanks.